Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys for joining me. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys are doing well. Back at it with your weekly astro weather, and this is going to be the kind of weekly transits for February the 1st through the 8th, 2026. Major headlines, Uranus is going direct, so we're going to be seeing Uranus waking up. We're going to talk all about what that means for the next couple of weeks. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, please subscribe to the channel, click that bell button below so you get alerts as to when I have new videos out, and definitely drop me a comment, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, consider sharing, and let me know if you're feeling the zing from Uranus this week. All right, well, we're going to be live on Friday. We're going to be doing Friday live tarot readings on the channel. That's going to be taking place at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, which is 4 p.m. on the West Coast and 8 p.m. on the East Coast. Come and hang out, get a reading on Friday. It's going to be a good time. I hope to see you guys there. And if you guys want to see more about me and my work, if you want to learn astrology or pick up a transit calendar, click the links below and head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. You guys can see my schedule and my availability as well as all of my offerings there. Guys, this week is the calm before the storm. So if you guys are watching this on the 1st, you are getting ready to experience a full moon in Leo. So if you haven't checked out that video, definitely check it out. I talk all about it. I equally kind of cover this in the February horoscopes for the 12 rising signs as well. But this is going to be a bit of a quiet week before we get into the February changes that are going to be absolutely global. We're going to see some really big things that are going to be happening. So make sure you're subscribed so you can see those videos. This week, we're going to be seeing a real potent mix of lunar transits. Not too much going on in the skies other than that. We are going to be seeing that there are some key planetary movements really setting the stage for some really big breakthroughs and some unexpected shifts. Now, we kind of kick off with the lingering effects of the full moon. That's going to be going Sunday the 1st into February the 2nd. It's happening in Leo, so it's loud, it's dramatic, it's got a lot of flair, and obviously it's emphasizing self-expression, creativity, and being kind of heart-centered and open, dropping the ego, and being ready to create something new or some big conclusions. So take a look at where you have Leo in your chart. This is also going to be watching, the moon move through Leo. We're going to feel it clear until about Monday, and then we're going to see the moon go from Leo into Virgo, where it's going to be making some contacts with the South Node, then into Libra, and then at the tail end of the week, the moon's going into Scorpio, and we're preparing for the last quarter square that'll be happening next Monday. Now, it's adding some layers of intensity, obviously, from being a little bit more bold to being a little bit more health-centered and really focusing on organization, and then it's going to kind of shift into being more open to relationships and diplomacy, and then a lot of deep introspection as the week kind of wraps up. While all of this is going on, Uranus is going to be stationing direct in Taurus, and that's going to happen on February the 3rd, 2026. So this is really about some major shifts that are kind of coming up for all of us physically, financially, when it comes to the markets, when it comes to crypto, metals, everything that's dealing with some kind of banking instability and so on. So we'll talk about that. And really over the last several years, we've been watching, Uranus and Taurus really kind of inject this really innovative energy into themes of Taurus. So stability, values, resources. And we're going to start seeing that this is kicking off some major surprises that are pushing us towards authentic growth and breaking away from old outdated values. So overall, the vibe of this week is one of an awakening is really what I would say. We are releasing outdated structures and kind of embracing fresh new possibilities in finances, maybe in security, as well as our own personal evolution. As we prepare for February mid-month, there is a pepper of transits. So get grounded, take a breather, enjoy this week while we have some time off, because as we're getting into mid-February, we have got a solar eclipse in Aquarius. We have got the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, Saturn's ingress also, and a bunch of squares that are going to start lighting up the skies with planets in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus. So even though we're going to feel the pressure, I think some of us are going to start feeling really the energy of the eclipses that are going to be coming in. As you guys know, this Leo full moon is setting the stage for over the next 2 weeks, we're building into that solar eclipse. So you guys don't have to wait for the solar eclipse to feel the effects of it. it can be kicking off as early as this Sunday when you guys are watching the video. Now let's talk a little bit more about Uranus going direct in Taurus. I think a lot of Tauruses are ready to bid farewell to this transit. It will be going direct, like I said, on February the 3rd, and it's going to be going direct around 27 degrees. So if you have anything really between, I would say, 26, 27, 28, 29 degrees of Taurus, check your charts, whether it's a sun, moon, or rising. This is the kind of finale that's happening between now and April before Uranus makes its way back into Gemini. Now, this is marking that final phase because Uranus is getting back into the tail degrees. It's waking up, and this is before it moves into Gemini for the better part of the next several years. Now, Uranus is only in this final bit until April 26, 2026. So last year in 2025, we saw Uranus leave Taurus, go into Gemini briefly, and then it came back. And it went retrograde on September the 6th, 2025 in Gemini. And then it retrograded back into Taurus actually on November the 7th. So think back to what changes were kind of happening for you guys, particularly I would say in kind of November of last year. And as for who this is going to be affecting the most, other than my Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Risings at those degrees, Aquarius, you get to add another kind of check mark to the week. You're going to be seeing that your modern day ruler Uranus is waking up, so it'll be impacting you. Also, if you happen to have anything between, I would say that 25 and 29 degrees of the fixed signs, so Leo, Scorpio, and also Aquarius risings or placements are going to be feeling this as well. So keep an eye on your chart if you have anything, because likely you're going through some oppositions or squares involving Uranus, which has probably been a little nerve-wracking. I do think that due to the co-rulership and the ongoing squares for Aquarius risings, it's going to be really, really, really significant in this next week, because you're going to see your chart ruler wake up, then you're going to see planets going through your sign coming into a square with Uranus. So you're really going to want to pay attention. In astrology, you know, Uranus is a planet that rules innovation. It is known as the mad scientist. It can also be connected to energy or anything that deals with technology. AI has been kind of like a big term that's kind of come up throughout this transit. And it's known to be rebellious. It's known to want to have freedom. It doesn't want to follow a traditional path. So usually when we see Uranus transits, it's about sudden shocks and surprises or sudden changes, maybe progressive ideas, and working out of old, outdated systems. Being that it's the modern day ruler of Aquarius, it is really associated with breakthroughs, and it's connected to power, the internet, electricity, as well as the collective evolution that's kind of like waking up. Now, in mundane astrology, it's a little different. If we're looking at world events and what it's going to be impacting, it really is connected to societal revolutions, and it's also about technological advancements. Maybe disruptions like earthquakes or riots can be seen through Uranus transits. We can also see major shifts that are going on with global systems. It can be chaotic at first, but often it leads to some major progress. So with Uranus kind of waking up, being in Taurus, some of the themes that we're going to see is anything that deals with stability. The stock market, banking, bonds certainly is going to be a big theme. We're also going to see that it's about material security, values, and this is a Venus-based sign, so it is going to be about sensuality and like that connection that we have to Earth. Nature, agriculture, farming all kind of fall under Taurus, and it's known for its more persistent nature, so it wants to keep pushing forward when Uranus is in this sign. And usually Taurus wants to focus on long-lasting foundations. It wants something that's more conservative, more traditional, and it's grounded because it's an earth sign, so it makes it practical and kind of focused on pleasure and possessions. So as Uranus wakes up in Taurus and it kind of finishes its final tour, it is going to be really focused on disrupting traditional notions of security. So what it wants to do is it wants to really urge us to be more innovative in finances. That's why we have seen so many different cryptocurrencies and all these different kind of, you know, monies that have kind of come up. We've also seen that it's made some radical changes in food systems. So throughout this transit, over the last several years, we've seen the rise of, you know, the lab-created meat. We have also seen major innovations in agriculture and anything that's going to be helping kind of preserve the planet. We've also seen that it's really been tied to environmental kind of practices. And it's been trying to get people to be more connected to the planet, which I think has actually been quite positive. So you've seen a lot of sustainability movements, a lot of things that are going to be about kind of promoting growth of trees and kind of having a healthier ecosystem. Can't really say the same for the banking system. I do feel like there's always tests that we see when Uranus is going through the sign, and when it's been retrograde, whatever has been worked on, now it starts to become revealed. So it can actually indicate that there's going to be some real challenges that are going to be coming up over the next couple of months when it comes to redefining what stability means for us in an unstable world, or in a world where we can't predict what's going on with markets, or that certain patterns and things aren't necessarily making sense. Now, it also means that it's blending that energy of Taurus's love for routine with Uranus's demand for kind of freedom. So it's really going to be about breakthroughs, I think, in sustainable living, breakthroughs with energy, breakthroughs with food, maybe financial tech, and also our personal values. Now, I want to read to you guys the Sabian symbol for this, because it's going to be going direct at 27. So we're going to be reading 28 because it's going to have a connection to it. And this is arguably one of my favorite Sabian symbols, I think. So Taurus 28 is a woman pursued by mature romance, okay? And the keyword is persuasion. So the theme is no time like the present. The symbol speaks to appreciation and the fact that there is no time, there is no point beyond which fullness of life cannot be experienced. It also speaks to the faith and refusal to accept defeat or loss at the end of a matter. The image of a woman pursued by mature romance expresses the deeper joy to be found in experiences when it comes after its appointed time has passed. There is no time like the present for seizing the opportunity. If the potential exists, it can be realized. At its highest, it represents a symbol of unquenchable hope, patience, and refusal to recognize limitations. The negative is that it can be about disillusionment, refusal to take chances, and willingness to accept a lesser than what is available today rather than to wait for a better that may come tomorrow. The accent is on serendipity. Something that you may have given up hoping for may suddenly appear at your doorstep. The opportunity is your greatest advantage lies in recognizing opportunity when it knocks. Everything comes at its own appointed time. Guard against giving up too soon or accepting second best because you're afraid you won't get what you really want. It's about inducement, appeal, plea, solicitation, petition, allure, attraction, enchantment, hope, opportunity, prospect, chance, appreciation, and ripeness. So, a woman being pursued by mature romance, like usually you'll see in one of the other variations, is a woman past her change of life experiences a new love. So it can represent that time where, when people are getting older and they're like, it's not my time anymore, I've given up on love, or, I'm not really at an age where I can find true love or romance or bliss or success or resources, that opportunity knocks. So never say never, and it's about seizing the moment. Intuitively, I feel like it's a time where a lot of people feel like they're never really going to reach that point of having material fulfillment or having the necessary resources or feeling wealthy or stable or rich. And there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen over the next month or two that's going to create a lot of pressure for a lot of people, where they're going to go, oh my gosh, am I going to take this risk? Am I going to invest in that technology? Am I going to buy that stock? Am I going to invest in my dreams? Am I going to pursue that relationship? And it's big risk, big reward season, guys. That's what we're kind of in the month of February. I also see this as a degree that is really symbolizing rising above biological or societal limitations, right? Don't let somebody tell you you're too old to start your own business. Don't let somebody tell you you're past your prime. Don't let people tell you that, you're washed up, there's no chance, why bother? Because this is saying that opportunity is going to start knocking, and that it's about embracing some of these perpetual kind of new beginnings and finding maturity in the things that we love. So for some of us, it can be relationships. For others, it can be resources. And as we look at Uranus going direct in this degree, it's going to highlight this renewal happening in the later stages in our values, in our banking system, in the financial world. And it's also about Uranus kind of awakening this dormant potential in our values and security. And it's offering us like this new lease on, life in a way. And I think we're going to find that through being more innovative. We're making changes, even though maybe we feel like we're past our prime. There's no time like the present. So get out there, start making things happen. I think with Uranus having gone through Taurus in recent years, it has been real. Maybe it's just me, but I've got a lot of fixed energy in my chart, so it's been real fun. But it's definitely been a big eye-opener for me. I think it's probably been one of the more challenging transits, but it's also been one of the more fun transits, because you just never know what side of the coin you're going to get with Uranus. I was reflecting on it because, Uranus entered Taurus back in 2018. And when Uranus went into that sign and then moved through Taurus, obviously we saw some squares to Saturn in Aquarius, which was kind of peppered into I think it was 2020 and 2021 and 2022. We saw a lot of change, and it was really the resistance to this incoming new system. It could be technology, it could be financial systems, it could be what was going to be happening with the internet. And one of the things that it's done, especially in regards to food and agriculture, is if we think back to what was happening 2020 to 2022, especially when we were seeing those squares with Saturn and Aquarius, we saw disruptions that came from supply chain issues post-COVID. So this led to innovations in vertical farming, right? Taurus is farming, and Uranus wants to kind of pivot. It wants to be at an angle. It doesn't want to be like in one particular degree. We also saw, like I said, lab-grown meat, plant-based alternatives, events like also 2022 where we saw major global food shortages due to what was going on with issues in Europe with the Ukraine war. And this really tied to rising costs and needing to find sustainable ways to be able to get resources and to get food. In regards to banking and finance, man, I can make you guys a whole video on that. But I think that it's been interesting to watch because this is when we saw the rise of cryptocurrencies, the rise of NFTs. We saw major shifts into all types of talks about CBDCs, stable coins, all that stuff. And 2018 to 2021, we saw a massive Bitcoin surge, and Bitcoin actually peaked near around $69,000 that year. And so that happened kind of like in late 2021, I believe. But NFTs were peaking in 2021. We saw fintech revolutions that really started decentralizing finance. So we saw DeFi. We also saw the 2023 kind of banking crisis where we saw Silicon Valley Bank collapse in March of 2023 while Uranus was at 16 degrees. And that echoed some of the up and coming shocks to traditional systems. So not all of it has been stable. There's been a lot of banking failures, and also there's been a lot of crypto scams. We've seen a lot of issues with like FTX and other things as an example. Environmentally and in terms of values, there has been a lot of talk about what's going on with the environment. And there's been a lot of mixed feelings about environmental laws and what is actually good for the planet versus what is good for certain people's kind of pocketbooks. We saw that there has been more focus on climate action. There's been a lot of destruction with Uranus and Taurus. We saw some massive Australian bushfires that were happening in, I think it was 2020, right around the time Uranus was around 2 or 3 degrees. And then 2021, we saw the COP26 summit while Uranus was retrograde around 12 degrees. And then we also saw that there was a huge shift towards ethical consumerism when people were saying, well, we don't want fast fashion, we don't want things that are going to be full of crap or, things that are processed. And so we were wanting to kind of move towards innovations to make things ourselves or make things like healthier. Electric vehicles have seen a huge boom post-2020, I think because of this as well. And there's just been major reevaluations of material worth amid what's been a lot of economic volatility. There was major stock market swings during this period. And specifically, Taurus rules banking, so it's more connected to banks. It's about the bond market. It's things that are connected to financial institutions. And obviously we saw major swings on several different levels. So if I go back, we saw a lot of volatility that happened in the stock market, especially, a sharp 2020 COVID crash, which if people were smart, they got in at that time because we saw things dramatically run up. But back then we saw in March of 2020, the markets plunged about 30 to 40% because of the pandemic fears, right? We also saw it was followed by a rapid recovery and a massive bull run that happened in 2021, followed by 2022's bear market, which brought significant declines. Actually, the S&P 500 was down 25%. We saw that there was a lot of inflation. There was a lot of rate hikes going on. And crypto has been all over the place. It's had a lot of really big swings. Probably one of the biggest was in 2021 where we saw surges that was happening in crypto for all-time highs. And then we saw the 2022 crypto winter crash. Bitcoin fell from 69,000 to under 20K. We saw recoveries and further volatility that went clear into 2025. So Bitcoin was actually surging to new highs. There was a lot of political optimism, I think, that was happening. And then it sharply kind of sold off and it fell in the fall of last year amid some of the tariff drama and also macro pressures, wiping out gains and triggering record level liquidations. So overall, it's going to be interesting to see what Uranus does, I think, with the tail end of this transit over the next couple of months. It's also going to be one thing to watch all the planets going through Aquarius squaring it, because not only is Uranus awake now, but now everybody's pushing for new innovations with banking and anything that deals with like cryptocurrencies. Last year in particular, I was looking at when Uranus went from Taurus to Gemini in November of 2025. In November of 2025, Uranus went back into Taurus around the 7th, and this signaled like this final review period that we've been kind of going through. And it brought, revisits to unfinished financial or kind of value-based changes from previous years. It did have some global echoes to economic volatility and obviously like tech and environmental setbacks before it's going to finally start moving forward here again in February. I think at this point, we all kind of know what the transit feels like. It's being on like a financial roller coaster. Prices go up, prices go down, things become more expensive, people panic. There's like issues with not being able to get things or shortages, or people have like FOMO because they're not getting in and buying things when the price is right. So it feels like a massive jolt to the foundations that we have in the area of Taurus in our chart. So kind of globally and just generally, Taurus rules money, but it might be in a different house for you. So you have to see what house that's in. This has really been urging us not to get too comfortable. It's been urging us to kind of move from stagnation to liberation. So a lot of us have probably felt a little restless. We've been wanting to make changes with our routines, maybe with our finances. There's been some big shifts in our self-worth. But ultimately, it's about empowering us to be more authentic when it comes to what we deem valuable and choosing security, even if that means we don't exactly quite know where we're going yet. Now, Venus is the dispositor of Uranus and Taurus, and so we're going to see some stuff going on with Venus. Venus is actually getting ready to start coming into some squares with Uranus, and we've got mutual reception here. So with that being kind of connected, it basically means that the Aquarius transits this week are really amplifying some of the more kind of innovative nature of, Aquarius. It means that there's more detached approaches to relationships and values. That means that as Uranus is dispositor, Venus can soften the shocks in a way, encouraging us to be more focusing on solutions, working together, being kind of group oriented, or that there can be unconventional ways of handling Uranus's kind of disruptions. So think like redefining beauty, money, or pleasure through community and tech, and coming up with solutions to find stability, especially when it deals with banking and lending or financing. With that mutual reception, it also means that, they're kind of sharing the same energies, right? So we've got Venus in a Uranian sign, Uranus in a Venusian sign, then they're going to square. So it's allowing the more innovative values with Uranus and Taurus to flow if we are detached from any particular outcome, or we're willing to get out of certain markets and into other markets. We can be more progressive with our relationships, and this will also ease some of the breakthroughs. I think to really highlight why this is so significant is that we have this stellium of planets going through Aquarius right now. And each of these planets, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, and eventually Mars, will have to come into a square with Uranus. And this is a superior square, so that means that everything that's going through Aquarius is beaming down on Uranus and Taurus, which means the people want some kind of revolutionary change. People want more options when it comes to banking. People want to maybe be less willing to follow the crowd and go along with certain kind of tech-related financial investments. Maybe there is going to be some big crowdfunding events, so there's going to be some big opportunities for companies to be formed, or for lending or anything that's dealing with like new peer-to-peer networks. Aquarius, I think, is very much that. You're going to find that with these squares, it is creating a lot of fixed sign friction, and fixed signs, we know they don't want to change. They want to do things their way. So Uranus is screaming revolution, freedom, independence, and Uranus is like, that's not comfortable. I don't want to change. And I think a lot of it's going to be the bankers. It's going to be the banking system. Financial stress tests are going to be likely. And yes, we are going to see some banks that are going to fold. It's already kind of happening. So it's really going to amplify this rebellious nature, I think, of Aquarius against some of the more outdated structures. So I would be expecting clashes between collective ideas, Aquarius, and also personal security, Taurus. So it's going to lead to innovative solutions, but there's a lot of volatility that's in the skies the next month, especially when it comes to social groups, friends, connections online, anything AI or tech related, or anything that deals with the financial system. To navigate this, we just really have to let go. Like, we have to kind of let astrology take the wheel. I do think that there will be some shocks and surprises. It's inevitable with some of just the ungodly transits that are happening in February. The best advice I can give you guys is to keep your vibes high. right? So if you want to be doing grounding exercises, if you want to be doing breath work, if you want to be surrounding yourself by people who have positive, kind of uplifting vibes, this can also be a time to be really focused on being like goal oriented, you know, and being focused on your goals and your dreams, and realizing that in order to make them happen, you have to let go of outdated views of things, and particularly materialism, what it means to be wealthy, what it means to be successful, what it means to have made it. In recent years, we've seen a lot of people go from having everything to nothing. We've also seen people who have become self-made, and they've been able to become very wealthy if they're willing to kind of work with these new systems, these new technologies that are coming in. And I do think a lot of this is just going to be about grounding yourself and reevaluating or reassessing your values in a mindful manner. What we deem to be safe, secure, and reliable is all likely going to change. This means that we have to embrace flexibility. We can't be super stubborn and kind of fixated. I also think that this is really going to be, for a lot of us, using, like I said, breath work, meditation, binaural beats, sound bowl meditation, anything frequency oriented would be really good. So that way we can kind of process some of the jolts that we're going to get to our nervous system. And we got to keep in mind that this is about avoiding any rigid attachment and really viewing disruptions as opportunity for freedom, because we're being set free, because there's about to be kind of like a reset that's coming. For global events, financial market fluctuations are a given. You're definitely going to see that. I do think that there can be new tech solutions that can kind of come up to kind of help us navigate this, but likely we're going to see some protests. We're going to see that there's going to be some major opportunities for breakthroughs when it comes to agriculture and food. And this is also kind of tied to the eclipse preview, which is going to be taking place in mid-February. Personally, you have to look at your chart. So obviously, if you have a bunch of planets that are going to be in the fixed signs, especially the later degrees, you're going to feel the pressure to change. Possibly, I would say the air signs are going to deal with this a little bit better. So like Aquarius and Libra, and obviously Gemini, you guys are going to be receiving trines from all those placements that are going to be in Aquarius. But the fixed signs are going to be feeling it. And with planets going through the late degrees, it means it's now coming into the final stages of that great shift that's going to be happening. Watch for heightened intuition, especially when it comes to change with your security and your values. There can be possible windfalls for some people, but also some very big losses for others that are going to prompt them to really reevaluate, why did I buy that? Why did I invest in that? You know, why did I think that that was going to be safe or secure? And it's going to be a wild ride. So even though we're going to start seeing these energies coming up now, I do think that this week is going to be a little bit more calm before we're getting into next week. So enjoy the calm before the storm while we have it. All right, so let's get into the astro weather for the week. We're going to be focusing more on the day by day. So we're going to look at where the moon is, what aspects are kind of playing out. If you guys want to see those transits, you can click the description below. You can see the date for each day and where the moon is and kind of what I'm recommending, so you know how to navigate the next week. And if you're watching on Sunday, happy Sunday to my Sunday crew. Thank you guys for taking me with you. We have seen a lot of growth in the channel, so thank you guys for your views and for listening, for your comments, for you guys subscribing or following my work. Take me along with you with whatever you got going on today. I appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoy this full moon. Certainly today looks quite lovely. Tomorrow looks a little bit more challenging on Monday. But when you're waking up on Sunday, February the 1st, the moon is moving through Leo. And so we talked last week about how the moon is being influenced by the sun, and we're coming into this kind of culmination period where it's this illumination of really Leo being like the star, the ego, the entertainer, entertainment world, celebrities, you know, anything that deals with those types of people. And you're just going to see a lot of stuff that's going to be kind of going around the next couple of days. But Leo also deals with children. It has connections to romantic partners, creative partners, anything that also deals with drama. So there could definitely be a little bit of drama that's in the air. First thing in the morning, the moon's going to make an opposition to Mars in Aquarius at a 7. So there's definitely a little bit of friction in relationships. There can be a little bit of like back and forth. We're also going to be seeing that the full moon is going to be coming in around like 4:09 Central Time. So I'm here in Texas. You guys might have to adjust your time zone, but we will be having the full moon later on Sunday. The real big transit is the full moon. So there's nothing else that's really going on there, but the moon, as it's going through Leo, is going to have to oppose Mars. Then we'll have the full moon in the early afternoon. Then after that, it's going to oppose Venus. And then we're going to start seeing it tomorrow on Monday opposing Mercury and squaring Uranus. So it's going to be quite an active moon that's going to go clear into Monday. So really the feeling that I'm getting is if you're an early bird and you're waking up around 7 a.m. Central Time, Notice that there's a little bit of tension. There's a little bit of friction that's in the air. It's going to ease up a little bit as soon as it starts moving out of that opposition with Mars. But by the time it's hitting that 12, 13 degrees, we are in the full moon energy. So that's going to be taking place in the afternoon hours. It looks closer to, well, let's see, 13:33. Yeah, it's going to be right around between like 4 and 4:30 that we'll see the full moon. So if you have anything that's 12, 13, 14 degrees of Leo or the fixed signs, you're really feeling the effects of this particular full moon. I think for the most part, the moon is very unaspected, right? It opposed Pluto overnight. It opposed Mars first thing in the morning. But the moon's not really receiving any aspects or any support from any outer planet. So it's kind of like the Lone Ranger, right? There's nothing happening. So it doesn't seem like a very big full moon to me. There can be a lot of action taking place though, because it is at a 13. So it can revolve around what's going on with like military, what's going on with generals, what's going on with leaders, and people being very bold and kind of, dynamic and kind of taking the stage. Now, after that, we then start to see the moon that's going to be coming into an opposition with Venus, but that's going to be happening kind of overnight into the early morning hours on Monday. So to really focus on Sunday, let's go back. The one thing that you need to know is that, it's a full moon that's not really getting too much static. It's going to be more on Monday. So the daily vibe that I kind of get for Sunday is that full moon is passionate, right? It's dramatic. This can be a great day for creative projects. It can be a great day for dates. You can go and do some fun stuff with the kids. Creativity is going to flow. You're going to see that there can be some ego clashes that can kind of arise. And that's the dynamic of the moon in opposition to the sun. And usually, Leo full moons, they like to roar. It's also in the second decan of Leo. So this is about being detached from the ego, creating just because you want to create, having fun and romance just because you want to play. It can mean that if we're more heart-centered, there can be some major revelations that can kind of emerge where we start to kind of realize, what do I want to create? Who do I want to collaborate with? What groups or what kind of particular goals or networks should I be really focusing on? So maybe think about that, include that in your thoughts on Sunday. I think the best way to kind of just navigate on Sunday is just the early morning, watch for a little bit of friction with the Moon-Mars opposition. You're going to probably feel like you want to express yourself boldly, but avoid some of the power struggles that are going to start emerging, late Sunday into Monday. Channel this energy into art, channel it into some playtime. Hang out with your kids, pull out your arts and crafts, play, go outside, be in the sun if you can find some in this weather, because we're still in the dead of winter, and have a good time. That's really what I would recommend doing. Now, as we're getting into Monday, so this is going to be the 2nd, so we're going to see in the middle of the night, the moon and Venus are going to oppose first thing in the morning, and then we wake up and the moon's coming into an opposition with Mercury. So 8 a.m. Central Time, the moon opposes Mercury. So there's something that's not meshing because Aquarius is very airy and it's detached and it wants to kind of have a good time and focus on networks. And it's more about those relationships that we have that are going to be more platonic, right? Aquarius is our friends. It can also be about our community. So there is like a sense of not seeing eye to eye when the moon and Mercury are in opposition, because when the moon's in Leo, it's very heart-centered, it's very bold, it's very kind of warm, and Mercury in Aquarius is like more fact-driven, more science-driven. It's less emotional. It's not as reactionary. It's a little bit more detached. So communication, business, meetings, first thing in the morning at 8 a.m., they ain't flowing, especially with these two planets being at 22 degrees. So with that opposition, it's a little sticky. I think the positive is that we are going to start to see that the moon is going to be coming into a trine with Chiron and Aries. So we have a slight fire trine here, which is going to allow us to tap into identity issues, identity wounds, healing something, being brave, being a little bit more confident. If you've got Chiron that is direct now. And if you have anything around like that 22 to 24 degrees of the fire signs, I think it's going to be pretty nice because you're going to be feeling like things are kind of flowing. But once we start seeing it get beyond this point, it's then going to start coming into a square with Uranus. And so this is where we definitely see some market chaos or things that are kind of destabilizing. Now we're having the moon that's kind of breaking down. So we're in that 2-week period as we're getting ready to get into the solar eclipse. So naturally, when we see full moons, there's like peak things that are going on. And then after the full moon, things start kind of like winding down. The Moon-Uranus square does make me feel like you need to be really careful with money, investing, the markets. The markets are the moon. So there's going to be a lot of talk about what's going on with the markets on Monday. It's going to be a little chaotic. I do think there's a lot of back and forth where people are going, okay, is it going to be focusing on traditional finance? Is it about taking chances and buying Leo things, gambling, risking, speculative stuff, gold? And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be split about the future of finance and whether it's going in the direction of something that's going to be more digital or things that are going to be more tokenized, or if it makes sense to, keep betting on whether or not certain speculative things are going to kind of, I guess, take the cake. But be very careful in the afternoon hours with Moon square Uranus, because right around the time the market's closing, you might see a pretty dramatic turn. You might also see that this is a time where there's like a lot of like emotional friction, and like there could be some conflict that we're kind of having with other people over money. It's not a good time to be doing any big banking transactions or any big purchases. And the moon's not really making too many positive aspects. So both the dispositor of Uranus and the moon are in Aquarius. And these are, like I said, coming into a square with Uranus. So it's just like, ready or not, this change is coming. It's not about when, it's not about if, it's about when. And there's about to be some major changes in the financial world. I think, on Monday, once we see that square happen, then we go into the evening hours. And then you're going to start to see that the moon is going to shift and it's going to go into Virgo. And that's going to happen around 10 p.m. Central Time. So it might be different for some of you guys depending on where you are. But then there's a pretty dramatic vibe shift because now we're focusing more on Virgo. Now, even with that, in this astrology, it just never ceases to amaze me. What is the ruler of Virgo? Mercury. Mercury is in Aquarius. So it's like everything's screaming, pay attention to the Aquarius area of your chart. There is something that's getting ready to emerge. I think that, the big transit that's going to happen on Monday is that you are going to be seeing that throughout the day, Mercury in Aquarius is sextiling Chiron. And so if Aquarius represents our groups, our networks, our communities, that sextile to Chiron means that we might find the friend that has the support we need. We might find the group that we need to join. We might find the goal that kind of reignites us. It might mean that it's helping us kind of connect to healing communities. It's helping us kind of take action and be a little bit more bold and independent. Communicate maybe where we felt wounded and kind of speak up for ourselves a little bit. But we're still not getting too much support with the moon. And when the moon goes into Virgo, it's immediately going to in conjunct or quincunx Neptune. So it's setting up a 2-day period of people needing to be more aware of their health, their habits, their routines. And this is the area of the chart where we've been seeing eclipses that are in Virgo. Okay, so this is going to be the last transit that we're going to see with the moon going through Virgo. The next one is going to be when we're having an eclipse in early March. So it's kind of doing that shakeout. And Virgo is the service industry, hospitality, anything that deals with health and jobs. And we're going to see as Mercury is coming into a square with Uranus that there's probably going to be some big news about changes with health, changes with systems, changes with jobs. Analysts that are coming up talking about just exactly how much technology is going to be impacting jobs or the banking sector. Now, I think that the daily vibe for the most part, when I look at Monday, is it's really kind of saying it's a good day for healing conversations, right? It's a good day for having more innovative ideas because they're going to meet emotional wounds and there's going to be opportunities for resolution. Afternoon surprises are very much expected with the moon in Leo when it's squaring Uranus, and it's definitely going to test your patience. It might also test your finances a little bit. So to navigate Monday, you guys really want to focus on communicating your vulnerabilities in an open fashion. Stay adaptable maybe to some of the unexpected shifts that are going to be happening in the late afternoon. Go to bed focusing on how you're going to spend the next 2 or 3 days focusing on health and habits. And we'll watch the moon continue to go through, Virgo really until the overnight hours. This will take us into February the 3rd. So when we wake up in the morning, the moon is coming into conjunction with the South Node. And this is notorious for, am I overworking? Am I, focusing too much on the details? Am I being too critical? Am I being too nitpicky? This is also a time where we become more aware of our bad habits and things that just aren't working for us. Still picking up that energy of Mercury, so we're watching Mercury continue to kind of move towards that square with Uranus. And we'll see the Virgo moon come into conjunction with the South Node midday. People can be a little moody with this. We can also see some job changes, sometimes some changes with our health, sometimes some changes with our schedule. So watch for that around 2 p.m. Central Time. And it is at a 9, so it can be some changes in regards to travel plans or educational plans or some shifts that are kind of happening for some of us legally or with education. Moon's not making any aspects to anything. There's nothing that's really going on. It'll eventually start coming into a sextile with Jupiter. It'll eventually start coming into a trine with Uranus, but that's not going to happen until we're getting into the next day on Wednesday. But this is a big day because it's the day that Uranus is going to go direct. Okay, so if we look at this, move ahead a little bit. Looks like Uranus is going to be going direct here, so it's going to be in the evening. And it's going to stay at 27 degrees for a little bit, kids. It's not going anywhere quite yet. But when it goes direct, it's following off of what's going on with Venus. So we've got Venus in Aquarius, so it's about kind of being a little bit more open-minded in relationships, keeping an open mind with money and values. And also the moon is being influenced by Mercury, and both of these two planets are conjunct. And now Mercury is within range of the square of Uranus. So the Virgo moon is going to be triggering a lot of static conversation, you know, issues with power, issues with technology, issues with communities and groups and people kind of pushing for change. My thought on February is like, yeah, we can see some shocks and surprises for sure, just with Uranus going direct. And it is at a 27, so it is a Gemini degree. So it's going to be things that are impacting vehicles, travel, our local communities, big news that's going to be on the media, that's going to be Uranus and Taurus things. I've been watching and I saw in this last week, I told you guys in my last video, I was like, there's going to be a lot of legislation stuff about the talk of, you know, what is moving forward with, laws that are going to be influencing the crypto world or the financial world. It has been happening. We have been seeing it. And I think it's going to continue as we're kind of getting into this next week. Also, Aquarius deals with politics. So, you know, there could be a lot of political things and a lot of political scandals that are kind of coming out as these planets are squaring Uranus, where we start to kind of see where certain individuals are being influenced for financial reasons. I know, nothing new, but certainly worth kind of mentioning because that's going to be factored into the eclipse. I would say, you know, Uranus going direct, especially if you have anything 26, 27, 28 degrees of Taurus, pay attention. And not just in your natal chart, also look at your progressions. If you also happen to have this on an angle or if it's like a node, it's going to be really important for you because what you have been internalizing and kind of thinking about changing, now it's going to go the other way. And unfortunately, even though I'm in the name of, you know, making predictions, I have learned it's not smart to make predictions around Uranus because usually the way that you think it's going to go completely different. And I would say the same thing also about the Aquarius eclipse that's coming in. It's about to show us that there are some things that we thought we knew that we do not know. And collectively, we're all going to wake up and start to see how that's actually really going to be further changing a lot of things when it comes to not just our resources, our food, our planet, our money, but also our values. So to navigate on Tuesday, you know, watch for Uranus Direct for the rocks, rattles, and rolls that are going to happen in the evening. It's a good day to pace yourself. It's a good day to be wearing your rocks and your crystals and your stones, working with a grounding mat, being outside in nature, eating, you know, good food, having good habits, really supporting your nervous system. And Taurus deals a lot with like aromatherapy, flowers, herbs, Bach essences. So if you're somebody who's into that stuff, good day to kind of have your diffusers going. Good day to be making sure maybe you're taking some stuff to kind of stabilize your nervous system or to kind of move through some of the changes that are coming up. I would also say that maybe get grounded and reflect on your past patterns, especially with the moon coming into conjunction with the south node. And with Uranus's kind of direct motion, it's really awakening this forward momentum in the Taurus area of your chart. And it's going to shake something up in regards to values, as will the squares that are kind of coming in next. Now, we're going to take this into what's going to be the 4th, which will be Wednesday. So in the overnight hours, the moon's going to keep moving through Virgo. It will start coming in the morning to a sextile with Jupiter. So there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel here. It's kind of like, okay, we're getting, you know, more so grounded. Jupiter also influences the moon. So this is a good time to be like organizing, cleaning house, emotionally kind of tending to your needs, like not overdoing something, watching your habits. And while the moon's going through Virgo, it's in conjunct and quincunx all of this stuff. So it was happening on Tuesday, it's happening on Wednesday, which means Virgo is like, wait, this doesn't make sense. Like these systems, like things are changing, jobs are changing. And Aquarius is like, yeah, that's the point. So there's not a lot of support, I think, that's going on, especially with the ruler being in this sign. Now, the positive that we will see on the 4th is that it's going to sextile Jupiter in the morning. It's then going to trine Uranus and Taurus in the PM hours. So likely we are going to start to see some of the effects of just exactly what is getting shaken out in regards to maybe food regulations, banking regulations, changes maybe going on with our jobs or our habits. And you're going to see these things start to happen here. So it's going to be in the evening. And right around the time it's hitting 25, 26 degrees, so it's around 9-ish p.m. Central Time, now it's trining Uranus. So it's going to be like, okay, well, what are we doing to now kind of like restabilize things financially? Or what changes have we made with our food or our habits or what we're eating? I've observed a lot with clients and also with me, you know, particularly with Uranus and Taurus, there's been a lot of changes with me being like, what is, you know, like stuff that's bioengineered? What is bioengineered ingredients? You know, what is in this fake meat? What is, you know, is this really organic? I have found myself like learning a lot about food. And so it's possible through these transits with the Virgo moon, there's going to be some new health regulations. There's going to be some new stuff that's coming up that's talking about how it's going to be impacting, you know, maybe what we can buy, what we can consume. And also anybody who's like a part of systems that's reliant on like food stamps or on other things. And so there could be some restrictions or limitations coming for what you can buy and what you can consume, right? So then I say that because the moon's also kind of applying to an opposition to Saturn, and that's really how we're going to kind of finish off the day. By the time that happens, it's kind of the middle of the night, so not a lot of us are going to feel it, but the moon's going to hit 29, Saturn's at 29, and it's very likely that that's representing a huge turning point where something that we have intuitively kind of felt that wasn't good for us, now we become more aware that's like, oh, now I'm really not going to do that. We will also see that opposition to Saturn and Pisces kind of happening overnight. Now in the background on Wednesday, the big transit is actually going to be that you have Venus that's now coming into a sextile with Chiron in Aries. So it's very similar to what happened on Monday when Mercury was sextiling Chiron, but now it's Venus. And Venus is obviously in a sign that's more social. It's kind of embracing things that are kind of unique or different or unusual. It can mean that this is like a breakthrough when it comes to relationships and healing for some people. I also feel like this is really opening the door for us to be a little bit more optimistic when it comes to some of the expansions that are taking place. And there's like this innovative kind of vibe that's coming in. Relational healing definitely softens boundaries. So we can feel like because we have a friend or we have a support system or we have a network or people we can kind of vent to, we don't feel so alone or we don't feel so isolated, and it allows us to kind of like heal or tend to any personal or relationship wounds. To navigate Wednesday, what you guys want to know is that this is a day to be really mindful of like nurturing connections because of that Mercury, because of that Venus Chiron sextile. This is also about kind of embracing supportive surprises, that there can be some positive changes that can happen while the moon is kind of trining Uranus. And because the moon is tied to family, home, emotions, maybe we find some kind of hack for organizing or cleaning our home. Maybe we find new products that are kind of healthier or kind of like more environmentally, you know, friendly. Maybe we make some changes to what we're eating or our routine. And we're kind of intuitively, you know, kind of leaning into that a little bit more. While we're watching the moon go through Virgo, we're really picking up on the square between Mercury and Uranus now. So it's very possible that pretty much anytime the 3rd, 4th, 5th, as these transits are kind of setting up, we will probably see some communications issues. We can see some issues with cell phones going out, some issues with streaming services, platforms, social media. Things can be down, so expect that. We will probably see that somewhere. And I do think that this is when we start to feel that kind of electric jolt of Mercury, you know, coming into that hard 90-degree angle with Uranus. And Mercury is the ruler of the South Node, so it can be some shocking news that's kind of coming up about companies, okay? So just kind of watching what I've seen over the last week, you know, hearing reports about certain companies that produce cleaning supplies, or companies that are, they have like warehouses that are holding, you know, food or processing food, and then recalls on food because they're finding feces and all kinds of other gross and disgusting things that we're like, oh my God, I'm cleaning my house with this, you know, or like I'm buying these products, or these are things that I have in my house. I would be watching for recalls in this week. I would be watching for recalls for food, and also anything that's connected to fertilizers, anything that's connected to natural foods, things that are supposedly good for you that may not be, or things that are not possibly sanitary or clean, because that's the realm of Virgo. Likely we will hear some stuff like that. You're also going to hear some major brouhaha on the internet where some people are going to be like, I'm not buying from that company anymore, or it's not ethical what they're doing, or it's just not what I thought I was getting. It's fake, right? Uranus can represent things that are futuristic, and it sounds good, and a lot of people have gotten on the bandwagon, but you're going to realize that it's probably not good for you. Probably a lot more exposure also just about how many big brands that are putting bioengineered products into their products, but they're brands that have bought smaller brands, okay? So, I mean, you can go down the rabbit hole on this, but there's like a whole list of major food companies that are buying all of these companies that started off independent, and they're keeping the same name because they bought the company, they're keeping the same branding, and a lot of things that you think are safe or you think that are healthy, you're actually starting to find out, oh my God, there's like stuff in it, or like, you know, formulas have changed, and like people are gonna kind of, yeah, they're gonna revolt against it. Keep an eye on anything that deals with recalls this week. That's something that I really, really, really want you guys to watch. All right, so as we leave February 4th, we're gonna be now moving into the 5th, and the moon's gonna come into an opposition with Saturn overnight, right around the middle of the night hours. And then we're gonna wake up with the moon in Libra, okay? So the moon's in Libra. This is basically really highlighting relationships, partnerships, spouses, clients, working together, being diplomatic. And we've got planets that are going to sit at the world axis points, 0 degrees of Aries, 0 degrees of Libra. So there can be some big events that are kind of happening on Thursday the 5th. Positive is that the moon is in a trine with Pluto, and it's also in a trine with Mars. So this is very social, dynamic, getting together, working together, focusing on relationships, socializing, connecting with people. Like it's good in that regard. But this is where we're going to see Mercury come into a square with Uranus. So Mercury is commerce, trade, travel, systems. In Aquarius, it could be breakthrough, you know, news about science and health and tech, where it's really rocking and rattling and rolling the financial system, which is now awake, by the way, it's direct, and it's at a 27. So this can also produce a lot of car accidents. It can produce a lot of issues with EVs. We can see some stuff that's coming up about environmental factors and kind of weighing the odds of whether or not we're going in the route of working with batteries and working with chips, or if we're moving more towards going back to fossil fuels and things that are going to be more from the earth, Taurus. We can also find that with the moon in opposition Neptune early in the morning, you know, it's just kind of like people are wanting to connect, or they're like contacting us. Did you hear the news? Did you read the news? And you're like, no, I was sleeping. Don't bother me. It's also possible that with Mercury square Uranus, this is like where we're starting to hear like the shocking media that's kind of starting to come up, and you're starting to see that it's gaining more mainstream kind of recognition for some of the destabilizing things that are going on in the financial system. We just saw this last week, there was a bank collapse that happened with a bank in Chicago. I think this is the first of a few that we're going to see. I don't think that the big ones are going to be necessarily safe from some of the stuff that's kind of going on personally. As we see the moon going through Libra, really what it's going to be focusing on doing is like picking up the energy of Venus. And so Venus is also coming into this square with Uranus. It's not exact yet, but it's happening. With the moon coming into a trine with Pluto, like if you have to have meetings, you have to reach out to clients, you want to have a talk with a partner, any of that stuff, that gets a little bit easier from about 10 a.m. on with the moon trine Pluto. It's at a communication degree, so I like it. And the moon's just going to keep doing its thing, where it's going to start coming into, then by the end of the day, a trine with Mars. And it's going to be in the evening hours, but that's still pretty passionate, great for socializing, connecting, not mad at it. But the Mercury-Uranus stuff is still in the air. Now Venus is building into the square. Well, I mean, Thursday, yes, tense communications. And fixed signs, like I said, they're rigid. They don't want to change. And so there's a lot of like Aquarius going, we got to think about the future. Or I call Mercury and Aquarius like kind of like the Paul Revere, you know, like the British are coming, the British are coming. So you're going to hear some people that are going to be like, the crash is coming, you know, or like the crypto boom is coming. And like, who knows? Everybody's like a prophet these days. But there is definitely going to be some news where there is a canary in the coal mine, where somebody is going to be like, guys, I'm looking at the charts, I'm looking at the figures, like something is about to be very big that's about to happen. And that person might get laughed at, and they might get kind of ridiculed, or there's going to be people going, it doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense with the fundamentals. Watch what happens. So as we go through the 5th, I think really what you want to watch is for tense communications that can happen. Don't force it. People can be a little bit more intense with the moon trine Pluto, but it can also be like, hey, you know what? This is a crisis. Let's work on this together. This is a problem. How can we fix it? Try to communicate, work with that air energy. And then also watch for brilliant but erratic ideas that clash with stability and needs. If you're somebody who has Mercury square Uranus or oppose Uranus or conjunct Uranus, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just feel like you stuck your finger in kind of like a light socket. stimulants, right? So think like sugar, think energy drinks, think caffeine, nicotine, all these things. You have to be really careful with this stuff because we can just be like lit up like a Christmas tree on Thursday. And there is great ideas that are coming up, but it may clash with, well, that's a great idea, but how are we going to find the money? Or it may clash with what is traditional or what is considered or deemed stable. So to navigate Thursday, think before speaking, guys, right? Make sure you check all your facts. Be mindful that there's going to be a lot of like fake information. There's going to be a lot of conspiracies that are going to be in the air. Harness some of the mental sparks for creativity. Run it by other people. Get some feedback. I think that would be really helpful. And then we're going to go on to what's going to be February 6th, which is Friday. And overnight, the moon is going to keep going through Libra. We pick up on Friday morning with the moon in a square to Jupiter. So we can definitely see some people that are emotionally reactionary or they're kind of reacting to potential change. There's a lot of emotional reactions and things that are kind of charged between relationships and also family and home dynamics. The positive is that we are seeing that the moon is now coming into a trine with the sun. So this is the first nice aspect, although it's still dismantling, since the full moon that we saw in Leo. And so air trines means let's communicate, let's socialize, let's connect, let's learn. And Libra says, let's be diplomatic, let's work together. So even though there's been some shocks and surprises, if we can communicate with our communities, if we can focus on our goals, come up with solutions, it can be a time where we can actually get some things done and we can kind of be like the dream team. So things flow really well when the sun and the moon are in a trine with each other. I do think still as the moon's going through Libra, it's really picking up where Venus is starting to feel uncomfortable because it is starting to push for changes. And so this can be relationship changes, style changes, value changes, major financial changes that are also impending. And it looks like that the moon is going to hit that trine with the sun, and that's going to happen at a 17. So that's going to be right around noon Central Time. So that's kind of peak romantic energy, creative energy, fun energy. Friday afternoon looks great. It's a very play hooky day. And then the moon's going to keep going. It will pick up a opposition to Chiron in the evening hours. And it looks like it's going to start coming into a trine also with Venus overnight. Big news on Friday is that we're going to see Mercury enter into Pisces. Well, that's not, I mean, that happens every year. Mercury is not particularly stable when it's in this degree because it doesn't have that scientific mind. It's not more group oriented like it was in Aquarius. So my mind is like anything you need to agree to, you need to sign, anything that requires anything of a logical nature, let's do it before Friday, right? When Mercury goes into Pisces, it's like crystal balls, tarot cards, it's dream interpretation, it's going to be more emotions and trying to find the words. Poetic, yes. Romantic, yes. But it's a little delulu, and I say that with all the love for my natal Mercury and Pisces people. And this is also where Mercury is going to be going retrograde at the end of February. So it's not in shadow yet. But we are going to see that it is kind of like the final farewell to all these planets going through Pisces in February and then March, and then April is a completely different ballgame. So on the 6th, I think that with Mercury and Pisces, you know, just be mindful that there's probably going to be some pretty prominent dreams that's then happening from the 6th on. To me, the day feels very vibey in a very social kind of relationship or kind of collective way. Maybe it's harmonious shift, you know, from self-focus to maybe being a little bit more intuitive when it goes into Pisces. Dreamy thinking is something that you're going to see, and that'll be in the evening hours. So keep like a little notebook by your bed or make a note of when you have some of these crazy dreams that are going to start kicking up. It always happens. Every time it's funny. It's like there's a lot of people in my real life who I see on the day-to-day who don't know what I do for a living. They have no idea. And they'll be like, oh, I just had this crazy dream. And it's always without a doubt when Mercury is either in Pisces or when it's retrograde or when the moon's going through Pisces. And I'm always like, So you're going to kind of see that, especially as you're kind of getting into the weekend when the moon goes into Scorpio. But dream interpretation is going to be a big thing. And you're going to hear a lot of people that are prophesizing things that are coming. And it's going to be kind of colorful. So I think on Friday, what you're probably going to want to focus on is just finding that balance in relationships. You know, when in doubt, call a friend, lean on a partner, talk to your therapist, connect to, you know, somebody who can give you some advice while the moon is making really nice aspects to Aquarius. This is also going to be a time where maybe some of us, as Mercury shifts into Pisces, we're trusting intuition over logic. I think that's going to be another theme. So we're going to go to bed with the moon coming into opposition with Chiron. Watch out on Friday night. There could definitely be some like relational drama, especially where we feel like relationships are suddenly changing very quickly, right? Because it's now at 26 degrees. So it's really starting to pick up that square to, Uranus. And I've heard a lot of people over the last like month or so, a lot of people are going, my relationship's just changing, man. Like we don't have the same values, or they don't want to, kind of have the same life I want, or they're really focused on materialism and I'm really focused on, having freedom and having a simple life. And I'm hearing this a lot of like marriages that are not seeing eye to eye about investments and dealing with debt. A lot of friendships that are shifting pretty dramatically because they're seeing what's being posted online or what friends are saying, and people are becoming very black and white. And that's some of the kind of the downside of some of the fixed squares, is that if you don't do this, I'm not going to do that. We can become very conditional. But I remind you guys that Venus in Aquarius is just kind of like live and let live. You love people for who they are. They're going to have their quirks. You don't really want to change them, and you may not see eye to eye, but that's okay. And some of these relationships may it really impact you in a positive way, where, their perspective or what they kind of bring to the table, or what they teach you about communication and love and values, can actually free you. And some of those are the squares that you're kind of seeing to Uranus. So watch for some of the relational dynamics really late on Friday. And then as we go into the 7th, first thing in the morning on Saturday, moon's still in Libra. Man, I'm just kind of mixed on this, because the moon is going to be trining Venus. So certainly I could see some people on Saturday morning just having a really great time with their partners, planning some fun events in the morning, having some great kind of get-togethers, some maybe all-nighters that were pulled, I don't know. But I'm also watching now Venus starting to come into the square with Uranus. So you're going to see relationships are a little testy after we see that moon trine. So the moon trine Venus is the best first thing in the morning. And then once we start seeing the moon go into Scorpio, which is here around 2 p.m., we start to lose that trine to Venus, and Venus is getting up in degrees. So we've got moon in Libra trining Venus in Aquarius. Then in the afternoon hours, the moon's going to enter Scorpio. And then we're going to see that the moon is immediately going to trine Mercury. So this can be more intense with the moon in Scorpio, right? We see a lot of like emotional detoxing, and there could definitely be some kind of paranoia or intensity or fear, or suddenly we're kind of feeling like, ooh, things are changing. Yes, because now we're coming into, on Monday, it'll be the first quarter square. So it's the breakdown phase before we come into the solar eclipse. Let's make lemonade. Let's find the positive here. Well, moon in Scorpio is influencing Mars and Pluto, which are both in the same sign. So it's saying, well, change is inevitable. We can be afraid of it or we can embrace it. And while the moon's going through Scorpio, it's now starting to come into a trine with Mercury. So your spidey senses might tick up a little bit on the 7th. It might mean you're doing some research. Maybe you're looking at investments, you're crunching numbers, you're trying to make sense of something. Your gut's telling you, have this conversation, make this decision, pay attention to that, listen to that on Saturday afternoon. Because Mercury is connected to what we have to release and let go of. So some of us might be like, yeah, I think I do feel a job change coming, or yeah, I do feel like a conversation needs to be had. And it's very intuitive, and it's about taking intuitive action. So that's a very small window where you're going to see that trine before things start kind of really kicking up. You start to lose that window as the evening goes on Saturday. Then we're going to see the moon start coming into a square with Pluto by 8 p.m., where then there's some emotional power struggles, feeling kind of like there is some uncomfortable emotions that are coming up, some things that need to be dealt with, need to be exposed, need to be kind of worked through. And here we have now Venus at 27 degrees, and it is referencing a Gemini degree. So kind of talking about like, I do like this, I don't like that, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. And this is just kind of growing pains or stress tests that we're going to see both in terms of finances, but also relationships. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot. I watched it when Saturn went through Aquarius and it squared Uranus and Taurus. I've watched it, in 2024 when we had that big stellium in Aquarius, square Uranus and Taurus. And I'm watching it now. It's a lot of divisiveness. It's a lot of people that are like, well, you don't have the same values that I do, so therefore I'm against you. And if you're not with us, we're against you. It's just like, And unfortunately, it's not going to work. We're going to see that, so much of this, unfortunately, because Taurus is more conservative, right? And Aquarius is going to be more about the future, and it's a little bit more open-minded, and it's a little bit more about being like liberal or open. it really is materializing as kind of like the left versus the right. But guys, don't get all wrapped up in that. Like that's not something that's going to help us right now, because there's a lot of things that are being orchestrated to create a lot of pressure to take away from some of the things that are about to start happening. Financial news, major banking news, major changes that's going to be happening with power, whether that's power and control or actual physical power and things that are kind of connected to, you know, kind of like geological events and like all of that stuff. Don't get wrapped up in that. Watch what happens when the moon starts coming into a square with Pluto, because that's going to start showing where there's going to be a lot more unrest and a lot more conflict that's going on online and also with social groups and with friends. Not my favorite night to go out, because you're going to see people who are going to want to be starting fights and kind of just, yeah, being dramatic. So be careful out there, particularly when you're driving on Saturday night. I think with that Pluto square moon in the evening hours, you know, and Venus is now beginning to square Uranus. So we're seeing that restlessness and how we're kind of connecting with people, and where people are just kind of becoming a little bit more conditional. Relational tensions are really going to build, and you're going to see that pretty much from about 6 p.m. Central on. You're also going to see that there is this deep transformation that's starting to kind of happen. And if there's one thing a Scorpio moon is good for, whether that's natally or, you know, out in the skies, it's going to dig all that stuff up, right? It's going to find all the dirt. So it's going to start exposing some of the things that are connected to crime, you know, mishandling of funds, scandals, things that are kind of dealing with hidden nature, sexual things, stuff like that. So it'll start kicking all of that up. I think to navigate on Saturday, I mean, you know, this is about leaning into the Scorpio moon, listening to your intuition early in the day, exploring the emotional depth that comes up with this. I think that this is also going to be about avoiding any possessive dynamics, because that happens a lot when you see planets that are going through the fixed signs. And so, you know, try not to be combative or possessive on Saturday night. And then the moon's going to keep moving. Venus has not officially squared Uranus yet. It's at 27-3, so we're going to keep going. And this is going to take us into Sunday, all right? So we wake up on Sunday morning. Venus is now officially squared. So if we take this back a little bit, and like the transit can happen, you know, within 2 degrees orbs, but it looks like when Venus is at 27-28 and Uranus is at 27-28, it's at 4 a.m. Central Time on Sunday. So the irony that if there is going to be something going absolutely haywire, something that's breaking down, or some big financial changes, it's happening on a day where the markets are not moving, obviously, unless you're involved in crypto. Now, by the time we wake up, we see the moon that's now coming into a trine with the North Node. So the nodes are connected to the moon. It's about fate and destiny. Moon in Scorpio says we need to bring out all the stuff that's ugly and things that we don't like, and we need to recognize or realize what we haven't seen, or what is or is not real, or what's an illusion. And the moon is now starting to come into a square with Mars. That's not fun, you know, because it's connected to both Mars and Pluto. So it already squared Pluto last night. There were some fighting words. Now it's squaring Mars, and people are kind of starting to feel like, what's going on? Things are breaking down. What's happening? Lean into the moon trine the North Node. Very similar to when the moon was in a trine with Mercury, right? What is your intuition telling you? Just rest, meditate, reflect, don't jump to conclusions, don't react yet, see what happens. I think that on Sunday, with that trine to the North Node in Pisces, it's good, but there's, once again, a very small window of good energy, because then the moon keeps moving. The moon squares Mars around 2 p.m. Central Time on Sunday, and then we feel a lot of emotional tension, friction, frustration in the air. People are being combative. People are getting moody, or they're feeling a little bit kind of like paranoid. I call it scorping out, okay? You guys have heard me say that, scorping out. And this means that there's just a lot of tension. Thankfully, once we get out of that square, which is going to be around the 2 p.m. hour, the moon will keep moving. And then it's going to start coming into what's going to be a trine with Jupiter, which is going to be in the evening hours, which hopefully brings us some much needed rest and recuperation and some healing after what feels like a very plutonic day. And then we're able to kind of regulate and kind of make sense of what's kind of happened emotionally and why there's been some fear and some tension that's kind of coming up. So what you're coming into that you're going to see on Monday is you're going to see the last quarter square. So when the moon is going through Scorpio in the overnight hours and then it's squaring the sun, I think that's going to be happening overnight. Let me check. It's going to be around 20 degrees. So it's a double dose of Scorpio energy. It squares Pluto, squares Mars, and then it squares the sun at 20 degrees. Okay, so it's going to be like first thing in the morning on Monday, very, very early. So let's just say you're feeling the last quarter square, you know, Sunday night, and then Monday where everything is kind of getting washed out, wiped out, and it is really bringing up the energy once again of Mars and Pluto, and then what's going on with Uranus, and Uranus is down here, and it's like, oh yeah, hi, now Venus has been squaring, now the sun's coming into a square, now the solar eclipse is coming in. So a little bit of a moody Sunday. Let's go back. I guess the only saving grace is kind of like that trine to the North Node. That's just like, okay, let it all wash away. Stay hydrated, you know, soak, take a long shower, take a long hot bath, go swimming, right? Focus on not being attached to any particular outcome. I cannot tell you guys this enough. Saturn's still in Pisces. You know, Neptune just went into Aries, so we're just kind of like, where are we going? We're a little dazed and confused. And now we know that these eclipses are coming in, and we see these planets that are squaring Uranus. And so be excited about where we are at right now. I think going back to the Sabian symbol, it's saying there's no time like right now. You know, you're not past your prime. There's still an opportunity to make money. There's still an opportunity to build things. There's still an opportunity to do stuff. Don't subscribe to some of the doom and gloom. What we think is going to happen, what's really going to happen are going to be two different things. Obviously, you know, what we find when we see some of the trines between the Scorpio moon and the North Node is that there's a karmic release. And as we're watching the moon squaring off with Mars, you know, there's going to be a conflict between desires and also our ideals. And we're going to find that there can be some friction in relationships, or there is some drama that's kind of coming out. Things are getting exposed. But we have to let go of control, right? That's what Scorpio, I think, has an issue with, is it's like, no, I'm resisting this change. I don't want to do it. And we really need to make sure that we're aligning our actions with growth, and that we're kind of welcoming some of the shakeout that's going to happen. Because whatever this shakeout is that's coming Sunday night into Monday is the setup for what will eventually become, you know, the solar eclipse, which is going to be next week. Guys, next week, I mean, we're starting to see Saturn's going to go back into Aries. We're going to see the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's syncing up closer to the 20th. We're going to see that solar eclipse. Next week on, I promise you guys, you're going to turn around and you're going to be like, what is happening? And we're going to see some stuff that's going to be happening around the world that is going to permanently change all of our lives at some point in February. It's hard to pinpoint with all the transits that are going to be happening, but it's going to be very, very big for the collective. It's going to be huge. We have not seen Saturn and Neptune conjunct in Aries in our lifetime. We haven't seen that happen, I think, since like the 60s or 70s, and it was not at this 0 degree. The last time it happened was before we had anything that was documented. It was literally like happening around the Bronze Age, which ushered in language, myth, culture, you know, the complete, I think, building phase of humankind and society. So I can't tell you guys enough that we are living in some like really, really rare and kind of like unprecedented times. So let go of control on Sunday. Try to really kind of align with some of the things that are ending. Maybe be excited and try to look at some of the things that are shaking out as an opportunity to kind of hit refresh and focus on where we're going in the future. I'd like to show you guys where Uranus is going direct for the 12 rising signs. You know, a lot of these things you probably already know, but we're going to talk about it anyway. I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology that I like to practice. So to make the most of my readings, I recommend listening to your rising sign first, because that's going to tell you exactly which house Uranus is going to be going direct in. If you're a Placidus user like me, then I recommend looking at your chart, see where 27 degrees of Taurus is, listen to the rising sign that's going to place Uranus in that particular house. So you might have to listen to another sign. You should listen to your rising sign first. You should listen to your sun sign to see how it's impacting you, your creativity, your goals, you know, your energy. You can listen to your moon sign to see how this is going to be impacting you emotionally as well. Special attention to Aquarius risings and also Taurus sun moon risings or placements between 26 and I would say 29 degrees. And the fixed signs 26 to 29 degrees, because you guys are going through the oppositions or the squares for the next couple of months between now and April. All right, so let's start first with my Aries and my Aries risings. What's up, Aries? You guys are getting ready to see Uranus go direct in the sign of Taurus in your natal second house. This has been quite the ride for you guys financially over the last couple of years. Obviously, with Uranus going direct in your second house, this is the house that deals with your money, your possessions, your values, your resources. So the theme this week is financial awakening. Now, I think it's about being more innovative with your income. Obviously, Uranus rules your 11th house, and you've got a whole slew of planets, including your planetary ruler Mars, going through that house, coming into a square with Uranus and Taurus. So it means that, a lot of you guys are going to find that there can be a lot of new goals coming online about your financial strategy. Maybe there are some group ideals that are kind of clashing with security. And it's in this preparation where all these planets are going through the squares to Uranus in your second house, where it's getting ready for the eclipse to kind of ignite new networks, meeting with new people, connecting with new people, being more innovative with your income. And I would say as a tip, this is about kind of going, who can I connect to, or what groups can I connect to learn how to kind of diversify my assets, or to learn more about money, or to learn more about cryptos or exchanges or anything that's going to be about financial freedom. This is also about embracing communal ventures. So it could be collaborations, working with teams, working with friends, new companies even. And I think Aries risings are actually going to be seeing some unexpected windfalls that are going to be happening in mid-February. I think that's going to get kicked off in a very big way. But it's all about who you know, Aries. So be kind of around some people who are going to be more future-oriented, and they're also thinking about solutions. And you could be a part of that. Somehow that can be kind of helping you improve what's going on with your finances. All right, well, Taurus and Taurus risings, how you guys doing? Let's get a temperature check on you guys. As if all these transits in your 10th house have not been enough recently. Taurus, I'd really be watching the dates that I gave you when Venus is squaring Uranus, because you're going to feel that big time, because there's this kind of back and forth tug of war that's going on between who you are out in the world professionally and what's expected of you and what you're presenting, versus this kind of pressure of feeling like I just want to break free, or I feel like I want to have more independence, or I don't want to go along with what I've always done. And there could be a lot of resistance for you, Taurus. So don't resist some of the changes that are coming. Obviously, Uranus is going direct in your house. So if you are that 26, 27, 28, 29 degrees, you've been going through a Uranus transit, you're probably over it. You're at the tail end. This is the grand finale of whether or not you're going to cling on to the old ways of looking, feeling, or working, or if you're going to embrace something new. Think of this as a change to yourself or your identity, or a change to, you and a personal kind of renovation that's kind of happening, or reinvention. Now, Uranus rules your 10th house of career, reputation, work, and status. And you're going to see that all these planets going through your 10th house, including your ruler, Venus, is really about your career goals, or who you are out in the world, versus, you, and whether or not you feel like you're being authentic, right? Are you feeling like you're burnt out with your job? Do you want to change careers? Are you feeling a lot of pressure at work? Do you feel like it's putting a lot of stress on your body? And as the eclipse is coming in this next month, it's going to totally transform your public image. It's starting to show you the future of where you are going. And a lot of you guys will get involved in tech, things that deal with science, things that are going to deal with new networks. It could mean that it's also going to be a new status that's going to be emerging professionally or in terms of your relationships. And that eclipse is going to ignite what I think is going to be new networks. And it will also be squaring your natal Uranus, or your transit Uranus in your sign. So it's going to be big. This will be something that will kind of continue from February on and unfold over several months of, some big changes in your career. I think for my Taurus risings, this is probably going to be about radical self-expression. And you may feel like you need to change something about your appearance, or you might need to, break free and kind of move away from how people see you at work and kind of redefine who you are on an individual level. Radical self-expression. Maybe you'll find that you're ready to update your look. Maybe you're ready to change something about your resume, or about the kind of work you're doing, or the services that you offer. I also think that this is about a breakthrough when it comes to your confidence. And, right now you're kind of front and center with all the planets in your 10th house. There's a lot of people seeing you. There's definitely a lot of pressure maybe that you're feeling to kind of show up and perform. But this is about really kind of saying, if it's not working, change it, Taurus. You can do it. You have the ability to create change. Good luck. Gemini and Gemini risings. What's up, guys? Well, we're going to see Uranus is going to be going direct in Taurus, which means Taurus is getting ready to kind of hand you the spark plugs and be like, here you go. It's in your 12th house, so it's a little bit more subtle for you guys. Obviously, in your 12th house, it deals with hidden spaces, your intuition, your dreams, spirituality, anything kind of connected to your subconscious, your bedroom. Think more inner revelations that are kind of happening. And so Uranus is tied to your 9th house. tons of planets going through your ninth house. It's trining you by sign. You've also got Mercury that's up here, so somehow that is influencing something about your dreams, your feelings, or your intuition. Could be lighting up travel or education as well. But I think that the squares that are kind of building between your ninth house and Uranus and your 12th is talking about your beliefs versus these hidden fears that you have, right? What your intuition is telling you about the world, what you're kind of picking up that's going to be changing, where there's going to be some shifts in terms of education or travel. And the eclipse that we're going to have in February is really going to expand, I think, your worldview. I think the theme for a lot of you guys is spiritual freedom, right? And I would be watching this week when Mercury comes into a square with Uranus, because you might have like a breakthrough conversation or take a course, or you're going to learn something new that's really going to kind of open you up and make you go, oh, maybe it's not what I thought it was, or maybe I'm learning about other cultures or other places. And I also think that this is a really good time to be meditating on your dreams. You have a very small window before it's going back into your sign. And I think it's going to be between like 0 and about 5 degrees of Gemini this year. So in the spring, in like April, when it comes back into your sign, if you have anything 0 to 5 degrees, you're going to be under a Uranus transit. Get yourself a Taurus rising friend so you can ask them what it's like. Thankfully, it'll be in a trine to Pluto. So I think that there's like this sense of Gemini risings really embracing becoming teachers, authors, travelers, and really feeling a little bit more free and exploratory, which I think you guys are going to like. Still rebellious, but definitely a little bit more freedom there. And I think that this is a time where you're probably going to have some intuitive downloads. Uranus in the 12th house can be about precognitive dreams. And so some things that you're kind of getting guidance on intuitively, or decoding your dreams, or maybe it's getting readings, or even learning about astrology can be very much Uranus in the 12th house. So watch for those intuitive downloads to come through, Gemini. All right, Cancer and Cancer rising, what's going on? You guys are going to be experiencing Uranus going direct in Taurus in your natal 11th house. Good place to have Uranus, right? I mean, this is where Uranus is kind of at home. I think that for a lot of you guys, this is going to be interesting when it comes to your friendships and your groups, any shifts in your friendships, your kind of social connections, your networks, your goals even. Uranus is traditionally tied to your 8th house. So the 8th house is going to be more dealing with intimacy, other people's money, change, transformation, psychological shifts, and anything that's going to be dealing with, like uncovering something that needs to be kind of healed or dealt with, especially financially or emotionally. And what you guys are going to find is that with these planets that are going through Aquarius, coming into a square with Uranus, is it brings up this tension through the square of intimacy versus community. I have friends, but are they close? Can I trust them? Is there security there? Is there financial kind of entanglement? Is there emotional or intimacy kind of entanglement? And it can also be that there can be some back and forth kind of financial things that are depending on other people. Now, what you may find is that this is about, with Uranus waking up, finding more innovative alliances. And so Taurus in the 11th house is, are you connecting with people who are talking about investing? Are you connecting with people who cook, or maybe they create art, or maybe they are going to be a little bit more financially savvy, right? And what you'll also find is that this is a good time for you to be going, you know what, I'm going to be joining some new progressive groups or circles. With Uranus there, it could be anything with cooking, crystals, healing, gardening, and also if you're wanting to join astrology groups or groups that deal with psychological things or investment themes, that can be good for you as well. I think that a new tribe is getting ready to form. That's possibly what's going to be kind of manifesting. And maybe there's been a lot of instability with feeling like friends have been kind of all over the place in recent years. You can see a significant change with a friendship. When the solar eclipse comes in, that's when the sun and the moon are going to be meeting in your 8th house. So it is saying that there is about to be some really big definitive changes with resources, and it's all going to be connected to who you know, whether that's people who support you, whether that's people who get you connected and help you find jobs, or they're funding projects, or there's going to be some kind of money that's coming from friends or connections. So I would say really stay open to that. Pay attention to your new dreams and goals in terms of intimacy, and also finances can also kind of come online. And the eclipse is really going to be a big one for you. It's really going to slingshot all these planets that are going to square Uranus, where you're going to wake up and you're going to go, okay, when I'm going through major change, which people do I have that I can really rely on, right? And so you're going to see who's going to stick around and who's going to be there for you as you're going through some really big life changes. Good luck, Cancer. Well, Leo, how you doing? Look at all these planets going through your 7th house. The sun won't square Uranus until closer to the eclipse. So you're looking at that kind of like in mid-February, but that's definitely, you know, being kind of foreshadowed with some of the Uranus stuff that's happening. So Leo, obviously Uranus has been moving through your 10th house of your career, your reputation, your status, how you're known. And that also includes who you're working with, who you're serving, who you're in a relationship with, as Uranus is directly connected to your 7th house. Now, with Uranus waking up in your 10th house and going direct, it can mean that you're going back to work, you're changing career direction, you're changing relationship direction. It can also mean that there are still some professional kind of upheavals that you're working through, especially if you have any Leo placements that are like 26 to 29 degrees, because you're still going through the Uranus square. Now, Aquarius in your 7th house, where you have your planetary ruler, the sun, Pluto, Mars, Mercury, and Venus are also going through there. And they're all coming into a square with Uranus. And you're going to see that kind of peppered this week. You're going to see that even more so with the solar eclipse that's going to be happening in your 7th house. That means that something that's changing in a relationship or the business partnership or, you know, with somebody who supports you is going to dramatically influence the changes that are happening with you at work. I think the theme here is about partnership versus ambition, you know, and really you're going to learn with the eclipse in your 7th house, and you're going to learn through the planets going through there that it's about working together as a team. What can we do together, right? And so you're going to see that it's a lot over the summer. Lots of big changes are coming in for you with eclipses in your sign and Jupiter going into your sign and releasing the ego of I have to be the one, it has to be all me, where you're embracing, you know, maybe getting married or being a part of like a power couple or starting a business with another person, and where two can actually be a lot stronger than one. Now, truth be told, some of the Uranus transits might be connected, you know, with the squares and Uranus going direct with changes with a partner or changes with a business partner, changes with your relationship to work. And I think that the eclipse is helping you redefine relationships. So it's preparing you for over the summer when the North Node goes into your 7th house to meet people who you're supposed to be working with, partnering with, you know, marrying. It'll also bring some really big pivotal changes for existing relationships. And you're going to see that relationships have to evolve, right, Aquarius? I think that the theme is about radical leadership and where you're willing to say, I'm not afraid to, you know, make changes with my business partnerships. I'm not afraid to make changes with my relationships. I'm willing to kind of break free if I need to do what I need to do work-wise. Great time for you guys to be, I think, also kind of like networking unconventionally, because Mercury and Venus have been in conjunction to the Sun transit recently. So there's a lot of new clients coming in, could be a lot of business. It can also be a time where you're working with a counselor, a therapist, or an astrologer, somebody who's helping you navigate some of the changes that's going on with your career. A manager even can kind of come in through this. And I'm expecting for a lot of you guys a career pivot, but likely this is going to be the last one. So you'll see it really start to come through when Venus is squaring Uranus, really start to come through when the solar eclipse squares Uranus, and it can actually be a very significant person who's going to help you kind of make the segue into the next leg of your professional journey. So don't resist it, don't resist it, don't resist it. Trust me, you're going to be a part of a dream team. A lot of Leo and Leo risings are going to end up dating, being with famous people, people who are very well connected, and people who can really kind of help you elevate your status. So stay open. All right, good luck. Virgo risings. You guys are going to be experiencing Uranus going direct in Taurus. So if you happen to have anything 26 to 29 degrees of Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, you've been under a Uranus trine. So the Uranus transits have been a little friendlier for you, I guess, in recent years. Maybe not when it was in Gemini last year, but certainly when it was in Taurus, it's been easier to navigate. Now, Uranus in your chart is moving through your 9th house, which is about your beliefs, higher education, legal matters, travel, anything that also deals with mentors, teachers, you know, kind of your philosophy. And Uranus is connected to your 6th house. So this deals directly with, you know, your health, your habits, your routines, your schedule, your coworkers, where you're working, your pets. So what you're finding is with Uranus going direct, it's helping you really come online with learning more about health, learning more about systems, learning more about scheduling and kind of managing a team or working with other people. And it's also about some changes to your health and your habits or your place of work, or potentially even travel plans, and where, you know, you're trying to find time to work and go to school, or you're trying to find time to work and travel, or maybe there's going to be some changes to your schedule because there's going to be education that's kind of coming up, or some kind of training. Now, truth be told, I do think that this can be a little tricky because you're going to be experiencing an eclipse here, and it's in a sign that you don't see, it's in conjunct. I would really watch the Mercury transits, Virgo, because Mercury going through the square to Uranus this week is going to start to show you where you really need to update your health, your habits, and also your schedule so you can make time for ninth house things. So I've seen Virgo risings who are like, I'm getting married, later this year. My work schedule is crazy, and how do I make it happen? Or, I'm just dying because I'm working so much, but I really want to travel. Or I've got a lot of work on my plate, but I'm trying to kind of balance going back to school or doing some kind of training. And so that's that friction that you see from the square. So as Mercury is squaring Uranus, you might find that there is a scheduling hiccup or there is an issue that's delaying travel. But I really feel like this is about routines and being really focused on routines. And you'll see that more as the eclipse comes through and the North Node goes through later this summer, and expansion. And so if you want to travel, right, get married, if you want to graduate, if you want to learn something new, if you want more freedom, then you got to get organized, babe. So you have to make the time to do the things that you want to do. And this means that you're going to be incorporating likely new systems or new technology, apps, other things to really help you become more productive. And I've told all my Virgo risings, look, your work schedule is crazy the next couple of months. So you need to go and actually start scheduling in. This is the time that I'm working out every week, block your schedule. This is when I'm walking the dog, right? Seems like silly, but these are sixth house things. This is when I'm going on a trip or a vacation. Block it out. Otherwise, you guys are just going to work like maniacs when you start seeing the North Node getting into your sixth house. Very health focused too. It can be that the theme is also about adventurous learning and exploring new studies, or you're feeling now you're really ready to, travel or kind of start a new project. And some surprise journeys can be kind of coming in here as well. Watch for the Mercury square Uranus where there's some scheduling snags or there's some issues with traveling. I think that will kind of get you guys. You might see that also around the eclipse that's going to be happening later this month in February also. All right, Libras and Libra risings. What's going on, guys? So you're going to be seeing Uranus go direct in Taurus in your 8th house. It's been real fun. What can I say about this transit? I think that for you guys, it's kind of similar to some of the other signs that are kind of experiencing the inconjunct or the quincunx. This has been a little tricky because it's been going through an area of your chart, Libra, that has been hidden, right? Kind of like being in a cave or under a rock is very much the 8th house, being in the shadows. So a lot of psychological shocks, a lot of surprises, a lot of changes that have been kind of happening. And Uranus is going direct now in your 8th house. So this is the house that deals with intimacy, shared money, taxes, inheritances, your partner's money, child support, anything that deals with also your psychological and kind of like your intimacy life, sex life certainly can be part of that. And Uranus is tied to your 5th house, which is going to be about creativity. It's about dating. It's about joy, self-expression. It's also, I think, really been trying to transform your bonds that you have with other people. Now, that can be your children, because Uranus is your 5th house. That can be romantic partners, lovers. It can also mean that you are feeling a little bit more risk-oriented in the love or kind of financial department as all these planets are going through your 5th house. Now, Libra, these squares between the 5th house and the 8th house are really about creativity and having fun and having flings and just playing or creating for the same sense of creating versus, ooh, do I want intimacy, right? Do I want more depth? And if you take risks through the 5th house, whether that's on a venture, a hobby, your own business, trying to be more creative, trying to be on stage, trying to be seen, does it materialize as some kind of significant gain and some like radical fluctuation where suddenly there is a big kind of change with your income that's coming in? Maybe. I think that, the eclipse that's coming in is, in this next month, it's a big one for you. Venus is already moving through there. So you're going to want to watch Venus coming into a square with Uranus this week because it's where you have to take a chance. You have to be willing to do something that is unique, unconventional, and different. And it's like a quirky talent. It's a hobby. Maybe it's a new person you're dating. And it's really pushing on you to go in that direction, to be more willing to kind of get in the sandbox and play. This is also possibly about some of you guys investing in something. So it can be speculative. It can be the stock market. It can be crypto. And it can go either way. It can be big risk, big reward, but I would also say be very careful, Libra, because Mercury rules losses. So with Mercury squaring, you have to be willing to not risk anything that you're not willing to lose. This can also mean that there can be some real kind of like romance that's getting sparked. And this is about redefining trust, because the 8th house is a lot about trust and intimacy. It can bring for some Libra risings financial gains, financial merger, something that you invested in suddenly pays off. It can also mean that there is some big financial fluctuations or changes somehow connected to children or insurance or joint money. So only you guys know what that means, but you'll see this kind of unfold over the next couple of months, after we have the eclipse that kind of comes in. But I do think for a lot of you guys who are starting your own business, or you're starting your own hobbies, or even a new relationship, or thinking about having kids, this can actually be like a really pivotal turning point for trust and intimacy in relationships. Good luck, Libra. All right, Scorpio and Scorpio rising. All my fixed signs, man. You guys are going to be experiencing Uranus going direct in your 7th house. Well, it's almost done. So if you're a Scorpio, 26 to about 29 degrees, you have been under a Uranus opposition, which definitely is a lot of unexpected things kind of happening with relationships and partners, because Uranus is waking up in your 7th house. And your 7th house can mean a therapist, an astrologer, a spouse, a partnership, a client. And it's also the house of like dealing with, oppositions and kind of whether or not you can actually positively relate to another person. And Uranus has been there for some time. So a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings over the last 7 or 8 years has been like, well, I got married, I got divorced, I met another person, they suddenly popped into my life, or I went through this breakup and then somebody else came in. And there's been a lot of like instability, I would say, in relationships throughout this transit. What you really want to think about is the fact that your planetary rulers, right, Mars and also Pluto, have recently come into conjunction. And really what it's been highlighting for you is that you really want to profoundly change and transform something about where you're living, how you're living, whether that's your home, whether that's with your family, whether that's dealing with some family kind of drama or dynamics, because this is a part of the storyline. For Scorpio, there's major partnership revolutions, and I think you're going to see over the next 2 or 3 months, it's going to get defined one way or another. It may feel like a very make or break situation for a lot of you guys. As planets are going through your 4th house, coming into a square with Uranus, it represents for you your home life, what's going on privately, what's going on emotionally, and how that's impacting your relationships and your partnerships just in general, how you're meeting people. If you're moving, how that changes how you're moving people. If there's family drama, how that's impacting your personal relationships as well. Now, when the eclipse comes in this next month, it's really going to be highlighting where you feel like you want to stabilize your roots. And maybe it means that you want to move or you want to change something about your home. And that could radically change or redefine relationships as well. And it can be that families putting pressure on relationships, or home situations are putting pressure on relationships. And yeah, it's a lot. I think that you can see unconventional unions happen, or kind of make or break situations. I would embrace differences in relationships. I think that's the one thing that has gotten me through. When I went through my Uranus in opposition to my Scorpio planets, I was like, I can't change certain things about people. I have to just accept it. I have to work with it and not be so rigid. And in doing that, I think it kind of taught me that in some ways you can actually have even better relationships. You can actually kind of be this polarity that can be complementary to each other. And so there can be dynamic duos that can kind of happen when you have Uranus in the 7th house. But there can also be, a lot of unpredictability with relationships and sudden separations and divorces. After the eclipse comes in mid-February, you're going to see Mars start coming into a square as well. So you'll want to watch those transits in February going into March, because you might be pushing for change to happen on the home front too quickly, or moving, or somebody has to move in order to kind of fulfill a relationship. So that's still going to kind of unfold over the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, watch for the changes that are going to be happening with romantic relationships, committed partnerships, and family relationships as well. And don't try to push too quickly for some of this change. Good luck. Sag and Sag rising. What's up, Sag? Uranus is waking up in Taurus in your natal 6th house, a sign you don't really have a lot in common with, but that's okay. Recently in this last year, you had Uranus go into Gemini. And you started seeing where there was a lot of dramatic shifts happening with relationships. And suddenly people are coming in, people are going out. It can also materialize as a change in a relationship with siblings and other things. And maybe some of the things that you were too busy working to see suddenly kind of came into your vision. And you were like, whoa, there is now this dramatic change happening in a relationship. I have to deal with it. We have to learn to talk about it. So I just want you to think about that, because Uranus is going to be going back into Gemini soon. And it may mean that you're really busy and you're really consumed with work, health, productivity, getting things done, that you don't quite see some of the changes that are going to be coming in relationship land here later this year. With Uranus going direct in your 6th house of health and routines, this is about wellness innovations. So a lot of you guys have become more aware of regulating your nervous system. You've changed your diet. You've tried to slow down. You've tried to incorporate whole foods into your diet, crystal healing. Maybe there's been being a little bit more independent, and you've been working as a freelancer, or you've been kind of having breaks and patterns and things changing with your work schedule. Maybe you've been dealing with some health things. For a lot of Sag risings, it's been thyroid, it's been vocal cords, it's been nervous system, things going on with nerves and things connected to the neck. And so what I'll tell you guys is that with Uranus going direct, it's really trying to get your attention, because it's tied to your 3rd house, because Uranus rules your 3rd house. So you're going to find that it's about this tension that's building between the 3rd house, which is communication, how you're on your phone, what you're saying, how you're driving, what you're thinking, and these squares that are building up into your 6th house. So number 1, Sag, be careful when you're driving, okay, through these transits, especially this month, because you're going to see an eclipse. Be careful how you're communicating, and make sure that you're not communicating out of fear, or you're not being too snappy. There can also be some snap decisions that can be made about changing your work schedule, changing your software, quitting jobs, going back and, returning to fixing some health-related things. And you're going to see it's going to be about your communication versus your habits. And so there can be a little bit of reluctance and change, reluctance to want to get behind change when it comes to your work and your daily habits and routines. The eclipse that's coming in February is going to enhance new learning. So learning more about health, learning more about your diet, learning more about new apps and other things that can actually kind of help you when it comes to media or websites. It can also prompt changes with vehicles or moves, short distance travel, that can happen as well. And it's really about having more efficient freedom, because Uranus wants to do that. It wants you to innovate some of this stuff so you don't have so much busy work. I think that I would be adopting tech for productivity. I've seen a lot of Sag risings that are like, yes, I got the Apple Watch, or I'm tracking my food, or I'm tracking my calories through this app. I have productivity apps that are automatically, making sure I'm doing my to-do list, or it's posting on social media and getting all my content out there. And I would embrace some of those things, because I think that's going to help you get a lot of stuff done. Aquarius is friendly with you. All these planets that are moving through Aquarius, even though it sextiles you, it's all in conjunct or quincunx Jupiter. So it's also highlighting for you where the things you don't say, the things you're not communicating, can be impacting your mind, your communication. It can be impacting your breathing, your lungs. It can be bringing up stress and anxiety. I'd be using Bach essences. I'd be using aromatherapy. I'd be using essential oils, massage, rolfing, right? All these things can be really great with Uranus going through your 6th house to help stabilize the nervous system and kind of calm the mind. And now we're starting to integrate more of the breath and the breath work that comes through Aquarius. Walking, biking, cycling, fitness apps, all these things are really great to kind of negate some of the more challenging aspects of the square to Uranus. And I would just say watch for health breakthroughs that can happen while Uranus is getting ready to go direct, and also the eclipse later this month. Good luck. Capricorn and Capricorn risings, what's going on, guys? If you happen to be a Cap or Cap rising, 26 to 29 degrees, Uranus has been pretty friendly to you actually in recent years. It's been making some trines to some of your planets in Capricorn, so it's definitely flown a little bit better. I think that it's a fun place to have Uranus in the 5th house. I like that transit. I feel like for many of you guys, it's been about having spontaneous creativity, opportunity for self-employment, hobbies that you enjoy, good surprises when it comes to investing in money and personal talent, sometimes some surprises with children or with your dating or kind of your love life. But I see this more as joyful disruptions that have been kind of happening in recent years. You're about done with this transit. So, I'm really thinking about how Uranus waking up is tied to your 2nd house. And your 2nd house is going to deal more with your money, your values, resources, investing in things, buying things. And as all these planets are going through Aquarius, it's squaring on Uranus. So I could see a lot of you guys being like, yes, I'm loading up and I'm buying supplies for my hobby. You know, that's going to be a side hustle or a business. I'm investing more maybe in the markets or in crypto, or I'm feeling more like I can get lucky and I can have, you know, like a stock pick that can kind of really take off. Saturn's not really doing anything. Saturn's still slightly in a sextile with Uranus. So I do feel like you feel a little bit more clear about what you're wanting to kind of invest in, or what you have to say about your creative projects, or even like your relationships, or even relationships with kids. But for Capricorn risings, you're going to feel like it's about values versus fun, right? And like you're going to go, well, if I'm making this money, I need to do something with it, or I need to find a creative way to make money. And the eclipse is really actually, for a lot of you guys that's coming in later in the month, securing your finances. So it's going to start to show you through that nodal eclipse in mid-February, and then you'll start to really see it unfold over the summertime, that if you're investing in things that are not guaranteed, or if you're investing in things that are just fun, it's not necessarily about making money, but things that you enjoy, kind of taking risks or being creative, these can be the things that can actually pay off the most. So if you are one of the signs that I would say big risk, big reward. I do think for Capricorn risings, you know, this is about being playful. This is about being more authentic and investing yourself in things that you enjoy. And so Uranus in the 5th house could be trading. It could be anything connected to crypto, but it could be working with flowers. It could be working with cooking, gardening, jewelry, anything that deals with rocks, crystals, stones, beautiful things. So I've seen like Capricorn risings in the last couple of months that have been starting jewelry businesses, crystal businesses, becoming aromatherapists. They're getting involved in astrology as a side hustle. They're learning more about using astrology for investments. They're starting floral businesses, perfume businesses, all of these kind of Taurian things. And so you have to invest in the things that you love, and there's no guarantee. But certainly I think that for you guys, if you can express in a more unique manner and you can have more of a creative spark, you're going to really start to see things that are going to grow, and you're going to feel really good about what you're creating. And I think that you're one of the signs that's actually going to have the most fun with Uranus that's going to be waking up. Sure, surprise changes with kids, with pregnancies, also things that are connected to romantic partners can happen. But these planets are really just kind of saying nothing is guaranteed. You might as well, kind of spin the wheel and see whether or not you're going to win something. Good luck, Capricorn. I love that transit for you. All right, Aquarius and Aquarius rising. What's going on, guys? I feel like you guys are kind of at war with yourselves a little bit this month, huh? It's like, you know, you have to make changes, but you know that it's going to ruffle some feathers. Obviously, one of your planetary rulers is going direct, and there's no doubt February you're going to look back and you're going to go, that's going to be the month that like everything changed. A lot of that's because of these squares that are happening between planets in Aquarius in your 1st house of self and Uranus in your 4th house of home, which is pushing on some really dramatic kind of changes on the home front. But it's also that Saturn and Neptune are getting ready to conjunct as well. So you're getting hit with a double whammy. And then you've had all these planets conjunct Pluto. So you've been preparing yourselves for the changes that are kind of coming. Uranus going direct means it is going to influence you personally. So you may finally make a decision. You know, you might finally decide, I am moving, or I am going to be renovating, or I am going back home, or I am going to be a little bit more kind of like fluid with what home looks like. It's also for you very much kind of connected to your family. So it could be your parents, it could be your roommates, it could be the friends that you might live with. And it can also just create a lot of turbulence over the next month in terms of your living situation. So just take a breather. Watch for domestic awakenings. I have Uranus in the 4th house. Certainly lots of shocks and surprises with family, living situations, electrical issues, and obviously I do astrology from home, so it's worked in that regard. But I think that the Uranus transit has really kind of shown me, when I think about the years that Uranus was going through there, it was just a lot of like, I'm moving here and then I'm moving there and then this change is happening and that change is happening. Like the good news is this is the finale. And now as we get into the spring and the summer, you know, Uranus will go into your 5th house where it's going to radically transform play, creativity, romance. You're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to have a lot of freedom. It's going to be trining Pluto, like it's going to be good. But this is basically the labor pains of what you need to do to have more of this. So Aquarius, I think it's about self versus roots. And so if you've been feeling a little bit more stable, you're going to start feeling that restlessness that's coming in. You're going to start feeling like, ooh, something has to change at home. Electrical challenges, sporadic sudden changes with where you want things in the house, and maybe you've been focusing on moving and getting settled, and now you're like, I don't want to be here anymore. You know, it's time to move again. You'll feel those urges, those impulses that are going to come up. And the eclipse that's going to happen is doing the same thing. So you're going to see the eclipse coming in, especially if you have anything around that 27, 28, 29 degrees. It's going to square Uranus, which is setting the stage for the next 6 to 12, maybe even 18 months of you still probably inevitably making a home change. Now that can come in May, that can come in the fall. You know, when that comes depends on your personal chart. But this is where you start to see that self versus roots thing, and the eclipse is going to really empower your identity. I think the theme is radical belonging, that home is not a place, home is where you are. And maybe you're redesigning a space, maybe you get a little restless and you can't move, so you're going to rearrange furniture, you're going to, paint some rooms and stuff. You can do that. I think that you're going to see some major shocks and surprises and some family evolution, and you can definitely see that it's being brought on by you because all the planets in your sign are squaring it. And also Venus, which is connected to Uranus, is squaring it. And some Aquarius and Aquarius risings are I love you guys, but you're resisting the change, or you can be a little reluctant to change, or you could be creating the family disruptions. So having a little bit of free time and space away from home can actually be really good. So you're not feeling like you're kind of caged in as you're going through some of these transits. But as you get into April, things start to kind of subside, and there's going to be a little bit more kind of peace that's going to be happening. So if you're an Aquarius or Aquarius rising, going for a drive, getting out of the house, short distance trips, thinking about moving, sure, but maybe hold off on that until closer to April, okay? Enjoy the ride. You guys do Uranus transits better than other people, but my goodness, my Aquarius risings are just getting hit with everything. Pisces risings. You guys are going to be experiencing Uranus going direct in Taurus. This will be happening in your natal third house. So this is a house that is about communication. It's the mind, learning, deals with siblings, neighbors, also connections to vehicles and just how you communicate. So with Uranus going direct, it's pulling on the energy in your 12th house. And it's really kind of connecting to the subconscious. I think it's going to materialize as intellectual shifts. I think it can materialize as sudden trips or learning something new or having a breakthrough with something that you're studying or learning, being more open to traveling or moving or relocating. And really we see with the squares in your 12th house to your 3rd house Uranus transit is that it's about your dreams, your subconscious, things that are wrapping up, things that maybe you weren't aware of or where you're getting some kind of intuitive guidance that's pushing on you to move, relocate, communicate, or share. So there's a lot of downloads that happen with these squares. And I would really be watching because nothing is really happening to Jupiter. It's actually in conjunct Jupiter, so you might subconsciously feel like things are coming in and you're feeling more kind of spiritual and you're in tune with what you're creating and you're waiting for things to kind of materialize. It's also not making any aspects to Neptune. So, I mean, it's not hitting your rulers directly right now. However, I think that as planets are going through your 12th house, you're kind of feeling like, okay, there's a lot of innovative thoughts, there's a lot of dreams, there's a lot of inspiration, there's a lot of change going on in the world. You know, how do I manage that? And I would say, speak your truth. Uranus in the 3rd house is like, tell people what you think. You know, you might have precognitive dreams, tell people. You might have a feeling about what's coming in the world. Blog about it, talk about it, share it with people, write something down. This is also about insightful messages that are coming to you subconsciously that's going to help you navigate if you're moving, if you're traveling, right? If you're going to be making some big changes, that's going to be happening on the home front, which, Uranus is going to go into Gemini in the spring, and it's going to definitely shake up your home. And I think a lot of my Pisces and Pisces risings are like, well, I don't know which way it's going to go yet. I'm going to keep things light. I'm going to wait and see how things kind of settle out. Smart to do that because you still have an eclipse coming in early March in your relationship zone. You still also have a Mercury retrograde at the end of February in your 1st house. Things aren't really going to start to feel clear until you're getting until like the 2nd half of March, beginning of April. Then you're on the move. So let things go, let things dissolve, and listen to your dreams, your intuition. What a great time to be using divination, whether that's astrology, whether that's working with a pendulum, something with your hand is the 3rd house, tarot, right? And this is also, I think, a time where you're learning to trust your intuition a little bit more because it's going to be guiding you onto how better navigate some of these travel or home-related things that are going to be coming up. I think that I would be embracing some of the messages that you're getting, and you're going to be feeling like it's really guiding you to kind of move through. It can feel like a bumpy time in the next month. And this is also just about getting rest because there's a lot of planets here, and it's saying if you don't get rest, you're going to feel the mental stress. So a lot of you guys are going to be feeling like you need to retreat, you need to sleep, and maybe you're doing some journaling or maybe you're doing some divination. do those things, because it's going to help you get a little bit of clarity and navigate the next couple of months as we get into it. So I hope you guys have some awesome dreams and some things that are very vivid, and some karmic clearing is usually what we see when those planets are going through the 12th house. All right, guys. Well, that's your astro weather for February 1st through the 8th, 2026. Enjoy the quiet while we have it. It's going to be an interesting ride the next couple of weeks. Stay grounded amid some of the Uranus kind of sparks. Obviously, remember, change is actually our ally. This is something we want to welcome. We want to bring it in because change is inevitable. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you guys give me a thumbs up, you share these videos, you like it, and subscribe to the channel. I'm always here on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays, trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Follow me on X at BTV Astro if you want to see more of my astro musings, and connect with me on Twitter. And find out more about me by clicking the links below and heading over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. I'm wishing you guys an electric week, and I will catch you guys back here on Tuesday. Until then, take care.